Good morning. It is August 25th, 2023. We're going to be doing the New York Times Daily Newsletter. Today's propagandist is David Leonhardt. We're covering China's economic problems, Trump's surrender, and Loch Ness. What to do next? China's economic problems can seem sudden and surprising. Just a few years ago, its economy inspired worldwide envy. No, it didn't. It was always bad. Today, signs of trouble appear to be everywhere. That's always been true. It's always been a lie. It's a communist country. We know they're lying. The real estate market is in a serious slump. So is ours. Consumer spending is weak. So is ours. Unemployment among young adults has surged above 20%. So is ours. And the government has responded by suspending the release of that statistic. Same thing ours did. Funny. The most terrifying thing is that everyone around me is at a loss of what to do next. Richard Lee, the owner of an auto parts business who has closed 2 of his 4 stores, told my colleague, I used to believe that our country would become better and better. Today's newsletter is intended to help you make sense of the turnabout. My main argument is that China's problems are not, in fact, new. They have been building for years, and Chinese leaders have long vowed to address them. So far, though, they have failed to do so. That failure is catching up to them. The only story, China's ascent over the past half century has been remarkable. No, it hasn't. Producing an arguably unprecedented decline in poverty. Nope, they lied and cheated to do it and killed people. Even so, the country's economic model has been familiar, investing in physical capital and education to become more productive and lure residents of rural areas to cities where they work in factories. In previous eras, England, Germany, and the US, Japan, and South Korea all followed the same model. So did the Soviet Union after World War II. And the Soviet Union did it through communism, and it was all artificial, and it didn't work out well, just like the Chinese. The economist Gregory Clark called it one story, the only story of economic development. After countries achieve rapid growth for several decades, they can come to resemble unstoppable forces destined to dominate the globe. People made such predictions about the Soviet Union in the 1960s, and they were all full of it. Japan in the 1980s and China in recent years, but you'll notice a pattern of disappointment in those examples, as Paul Krugman, the Times columnist and Nobel laureate economist, has pointed out. Paul Krugman is one of the guys that helped create the financial collapse of 2008. He's a liar, a charlatan. Whatever he says, assume the opposite of is true. 13 years ago, I visited China to report a story for the Times magazine and wrote the following. To continue growing rapidly, China needs to make the next transition from sweatshop economy to innovation economy. This transition is one that has often proved difficult elsewhere. Once a country has turned itself into an export factory, it cannot keep growing by repeating the exercise. It can't move a worker from inefficient farm to a modern factory more than once. It cannot even retain its industrial might forever. As a country industrializes, worker will demand their share of the bounty, as it started happening in China, and some factories will start moving to poorer countries. Eventually, a rising economy needs to take 2 crucial steps: manufacture goods that aren't just cheaper than the competition, but better, and create a thriving domestic market so that its own consumers can pick up the slack when exports inevitably slow. These steps go hand in hand. Big consumer markets become laboratories where companies know that innovation will be tested and the successful ones richly rewarded. I did not predict China's current problems, to be clear. I was agnostic about whether its leaders would take the steps to build a more advanced economy, but I did describe the consensus, both inside and outside of China, about what those steps were. China's current problems stem from not having taken them, but its leaders have instead doubled down on the same strategies that worked in past decades, like the construction of more apartment buildings and factories. It's not working. China still does not have a thriving consumer economy to replace its smokestack economy. It has neglected to build safety nets strong enough to give ordinary workers the confidence to spend more. Health insurance is spotty. Government payouts to seniors are tiny. The Times Beijing chief wrote, Keith Bradshaw. Education is increasingly costly. Why isn't China taking the necessary steps? Change is hard. The bureaucrats who run legacy industries like construction have more political influence than those who run nascent industries. President Xi Jinping also seems concerned that a robust consumer economy might undermine the ruling party's authority. At least 5 or 10 years, any article about China's economy tends to include the caveat that it could turn around soon. So consider this newsletter caveated by telling a coherent story about why and how China would boom again is becoming harder. Xi is resisting changes that even Chinese experts have long advocated. The country's population is shrinking with the biggest declines ahead, and other countries have become warier of working with China for geopolitical reasons. In that 2010 Times Magazine article, I included the following paragraph of caveat. It feels a little different 13 years later. None of this means China is on the verge of running out of steam. It probably has 5 or 10 years of rapid growth ahead, even if it simply doubles down on the current growth strategy, because it can still take more industrial market share from other countries. In a way, though, the country's short-term strength in manufacturing and exporting may be another reason to wonder what the future holds. These strengths will make it harder for China to summon the urgency to remake itself. For more, China's 40-year boon is over. The Wall Street Journal proclaimed in a front-page headline this week, the editors of The Economist agreed, China's economy won't be fixed. The country has accumulated enough empty apartments to meet 7 years' worth of demand. China's already a superpower, and its current stumbles aren't likely to end that status, Krugman wrote recently. China's domestic problems make it more, not less, of a danger to global security. Trump's indictment, the mugshot seen around the world, probably the most shared image of all time. Donald Trump surrendered in an Atlanta jail and was booked on charges that he tried to overturn his 2020 election win. He won, he didn't lose. He spent almost 20 minutes in jail. Trump gave his fingerprints and stood for the mugshot, the first taken in his 4 criminal indictments this year, all of them shams. Trump posted the mugshot on Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and his account has been dormant since the platform reinstated it in November. The mugshot is the ultimate memento of a norm-shattering presidency in the social media-obsessed age. Well, the biggest norms that were shattered were the Democrats, who have violated all of them to go after Big Bad Orange Man. Russian plane crash. U.S. officials believe that the mercenary leader Prigozhin died in a plane crash and that Putin ordered his killing. It wasn't a crash, it was shot down. We saw that. They also believe an onboard explosion brought down the plane. Putin publicly referred to Prigozhin in the past tense. This was a person with a complicated fate. Putin said he made some serious mistakes in life, but he also achieved necessary results. Prigozhin rose from running hot dog stands and became one of the most powerful men in Russia, serving a public face of a force that fought in the country's behalf across the Middle East and Africa. No mention of Wagner, that's interesting. Climate. So some propaganda here. In a lawsuit, Maui officials blame an electric utility for allowing a deadly fire to start. Authorities also released the names of 5 more victims, including a 7-year-old, Tony Takafua. We're not going to blame the public officials that didn't blast the sirens, that didn't release water, that didn't tell people and told them to stay there so that they would burn to death. But we're worried about the utility. Tropical Storm Franklin hammered the Dominican Republic. It is expected to turn east away from the U.S. A majority of emperor penguin colonies in a region of Antarctica lost their chicks as ice melted. Tiny forests are providing big environmental benefits across the U.S. Artificial intelligence. As the school year begins, some districts that barred the use of AI chatbots are rethinking their stance. While automation has mainly hurt blue-collar workers, AI is putting white-collar jobs at risk. Other big stories. Kathy Hochul, New York's governor, criticized the Biden administration for failing to help the state manage a recent influx of migrants. But I thought you were fine with it. I thought diversity was a strength and it was a good thing. It's funny how when you deal with 50 migrants or a couple hundred, it's impossible. But Texas is supposed to deal with millions. The number of sex change surgeries in the U.S. nearly tripled from 2016 to 2019 as laws expanded to help harm and mutilate young minors. It's a horrible thing that we're doing to children. A man in the Bronx died after a police sergeant threw a cooler at him, knocking him off his motorbike. Wow, that's awful. Human encounters with bears have become more common in Connecticut, though the state doesn't have a bear hunt. New law allows residents to shoot the animals in self-defense. Don't understand why there would have ever not been the case. Self-help industry teaches us to make the right decisions, but we should feel free to act on our desires. Today we're offering free access to the articles linked in this section. Loch Ness, the search is on again for Nessie. There is no Loch Ness monster. It's just, I mean, They'd have found it if it was there. Let's see. What do we have? Anything good? Nike said it would change course and offer replicas of the jerseys worn by the Women's World Cup goalkeepers after complaints from fans. Why? They're losers. Who wants to buy losers? WWE lost the wrestling superstar Wyndham Rotunda, better known by his stage name Bray Wyatt, died unexpectedly at 36. Wow. Wonder if he had the shot. Another record, the Las Vegas Aces become the first team in WNBA history to reach 30 regular season wins. No kids allowed. What happened to the family film? Only 12 major children's movies are set for release, and they all have gay characters or trans characters, and nobody wants to go to them. That's why. That's what happened. About half as many as 4 years ago. Most are adaptations of video game, TV shows, or comic books. Why? The rise in streaming has reduced demand for movie going, and less studios reluctant to release anything that doesn't look like a blockbuster. Actually, it's because they want to make homogenous movies that will appeal to everybody and not try and offend anybody, and then do well in China. Grate zucchini into fritters. Okay, so today in history. On August 25th, 2018, Senator John McCain of Arizona, who spent years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam before a 35-year political career that took him to the Republican presidential nomination, died at the age of 81 after battling brain cancer for more than a year. In 1718, hundreds of French colonists arrived in Louisiana, with some settling in present-day New Orleans. Hey, they forgot to mention part of that. Part of that is that you were the king offered $100 if you would take a prostitute and move to New Orleans and live there. In 1875, Captain Matthew Webb became the first person to swim across the English Channel, getting from Dover, England to Calais, France in 22 hours. In 1928, an expedition led by Richard E. Byrd set sail from Hoboken, New Jersey on its journey to Antarctica. In 1944, during World War II, Paris was liberated by Allied forces after 4 years of Nazi occupation. In 1958, the game show Concentration premiered on NBC. In 1980, the Broadway musical 42nd Street opened. Producer David Merrick stunned the cast and audience during the curtain call by announcing that the show's director, Gower Champion, had died earlier that day. Wow. In 1981, the U.S. spacecraft Voyager 2 came within 63,000 miles of Saturn's cloud cover, sending back pictures of data about the ringed planet. In 1985, Samantha Smith, 13, the schoolgirl whose letter to Yuri V. Andropov resulted in the famous peace tour of the Soviet Union, died with her father in an airline crash in Auburn, Maine, that also killed 4 other passengers and 2 crew members. In 2001, R&B singer Aaliyah was killed with 8 others in a plane crash in the Bahamas. She was 22. In 2009, Senator Edward M. Kennedy, the liberal lion of the U.S. Senate, died at age 77 in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, after a battle with a brain tumor. In 2014, a funeral was held in St. Louis for Michael Brown, the black 18-year-old who was shot to death by a police officer in suburban Ferguson. So you forgot to mention that Michael Brown committed a strong-arm robbery and then attempted to beat a cop who just told him to get out of the road. He didn't even know about the strong-arm robbery, but Brown did. Brown thought the cop was reacting to that and attempted to beat the cop senseless and take his gun. The media lied and said that he had his hands up when he was shot. No, that's not true. He was beating Darren Wilson when he was shot. And his friend, Dorian, I think Dorian was his last name, flat out lied and then changed his story. And we know he was lying about it, which sparked the Black Lives Matter movement. And then they started having stories, chants where they said, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. And we all acted like that wasn't a big deal. In 2020, 2 people were shot to death and a third was wounded as 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse opened fire with an AR-15 rifle during the 3rd night of protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, over the police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake was a criminal that was trying to kidnap his kids and go after a knife and refused to respond to police commands. Rittenhouse, who was taken into custody in Illinois the next day, said he was defending himself after the three men attacked him as he tried to protect businesses from protesters. He was acquitted on all charges, including homicide. That's because it was on tape. You forgot to mention that two of the people that tried to kill him were pedophiles, one of which got out of a mental institution that day and attempted to kill Kyle. So did another person. Oh, and Grosowitz, who shot at him and produced a gun illegally, is being charged for his criminal action. So, you forgot to mention a few things about that. August 25th, actor Tom... Oh, this is birthdays. So, birthdays here. So, actor Tom Skerritt is 90, whoever he is. Singer Walter Williams of the OJs is 80. Actor Anthony Heald, Boston Public, is 79. Oh, I like him. Singer Henry Paul of Black Hawk and Outlaws is 74. Actor John Savage is 74. Bassist Gene Simmons of Kiss turned 74. Let's see, Rob Halford of Judas Priest is 72. Keyboardist Jeff Downs of Asia is 71. Musician Elvis Costello is 69. Tim Burton is 65. Let's see, actor Christian LeBlanc, The Young and the Restless. Oh, my mom's favorite soap opera when I was a kid. I had to watch that. Is 65. Actor Ashley Crowe, Heroes, is 63. Country singer Billy Ray Cyrus is 62. Actor Ali Walker, Profiler, is 62. Actor Joanne Whalley is 62. Guitarist Vivian Campbell of Def Leppard is 61. Actor Blair Underwood is 59. Actor Robert Macchio is from Scrubs is 57. DJ Terminator X of Public Enemy is 57. Singer Jeff Tweedy of Wilco is 56. Actor David Allen Bosch, The X's, is 55. TV chef Rachel Ray is 55. Actor Cameron Matheson, All My Children, is 54. Country singer Joe D. Messina is 53. Model Claudia Schiffer is 53. Actor Nathan Page, Miss Fisher, Murder Mysteries, is 52. Actor Eric Milligan from Bones is 49. Actor Alexander Skarsgård, Big Littles, True Blood, is 47. Actor Jonathan Togo, CSI Miami, is 46. Actor Kel Mitchell, Keenan and Kel, is 45. Actor Rachel Bilson, Heart of Dixie, The OC, is 42. And actor Blake Lively is 36. Okay. Well, there we go.